This was the moment that defined him for millions. A single kick, a single miss, and just like that, the hero became the villain. They'll tell you that moment defined him. The missed penalty in the World Cup final. The silence, the slumped shoulders, the tears. But that's not the real story. The real story is about a boy from Caldagno, not just a footballer, but a soul wrapped in boots who grew up juggling pain, pressure, and the heavy weight of expectation. A boy who carried a nation on his back. A boy whose name should have been written in gold, not remembered in grief. Before the world immortalized him for a single misstep, Roberto Baggio gave us 1,000 moments of magic, moments of grace, pain, and impossible beauty. Italy is a land of warriors, a nation known for defenders Maldini, Baresi, Nesta, Cannavaro, titans of the backline, but from this fortress of iron and grit emerged an artist, a quiet genius with a ponytail and a poetic right foot. This is the story of Roberto Baggio. He was born in Caldagno and began playing football with his local club at just 9 years old. By the time he was 11, he had already been involved in 65 goals across 26 games, 6 in a single match. Word spread fast. Who was this kid? A magician? A miracle? That kid was Roberto Baggio, and when he played, time slowed. Every touch was poetry, every pass, a verse, every goal, a signature. In 1980, he joined Vicenza's youth setup. Just 3 years later, at 15, he was promoted to the senior team in Serie C. It was there, in 1984, that he scored his first professional goal from the penalty spot. He couldn't have known then that the same spot would later haunt him forever. But for now, the boy was unstoppable. In 1985, he was named the best player in Serie C1, and Italy's top clubs were lining up. Fiorentina moved first. He was just 2 days away from signing with them when disaster struck. During a match, he slid into a tackle and ruptured his ACL and meniscus. At 18 years old, doctors feared his career was already over, but Fiorentina believed in him. They signed him anyway. They paid for his surgery, his rehab, his future. It was a gesture that would ignite a civil war years later. Baggio didn't play a single Serie A game his first season due to the injury. When he finally returned in September 1986, fate struck again. Another devastating knee injury. 220 stitches were required to put his leg back together. Fans began to lose patience. Was he a genius or just a medical bill? But Baggio refused to disappear. 8 months later, in May 1987, he made his long-awaited return. The opponent Maradona's Napoli, the Spagna select. Napoli went up 1-0, business as usual. But then, Baggio stepped up and scored a stunning free kick, salvaging a point for Fiorentina. That goal not only shocked the champions, it saved Fiorentina from relegation. That moment was the turning point in the 1988-89 season. Baggio exploded. 15 goals in Serie A, third highest scorer in the league. He dragged Fiorentina to 7th place and a UEFA Cup spot. His balance, vision, and artistry made him unlike anyone else. Miguel Montuori, a Fiorentina legend, declared him even more productive than Maradona. In 1990, Baggio helped Fiorentina reach the UEFA Cup final. His first European goal, a penalty, of course, but fate has a twisted sense of humor. Fiorentina lost to Juventus, and shortly after, the unthinkable happened. Juventus signed Roberto Baggio for £8 million, a world record fee at the time. Florence erupted in rage, not just because they lost their hero but because they lost him to their sworn enemies. Fiorentina and Juventus were bitter rivals, especially after the controversial 1982 Scudetto. Riots broke out, streets burned, 50 injured, 9 arrested. The Fiorentina president had to lock himself inside the stadium for his own safety. Baggio later admitted he didn't want to leave. He was forced, but that didn't stop the betrayal from stinging. When he returned to Florence, wearing black and white, he was booed and jeered. But then, something extraordinary happened. He won a penalty for Juventus but refused to take it. He later said it was because the keeper knew him too well. But everyone knew the truth. He couldn't score against the team he still loved. His coach was furious, subbed him off. The replacement missed. Juventus lost as Baggio walked off the pitch. A Fiorentina scarf was thrown onto the ground. He picked it up, held it to his heart. The image became iconic. The Fiorentina fans forgave him, but the Juve fans not yet. At the next training session, hundreds showed up to confront him, but Baggio silenced the critics the only way he knew how, with brilliance. In 1993, he led Juventus to UEFA Cup glory, scoring twice and assisting once in the final. That season, he scored 39 goals in all competitions. He didn't just bounce back, he dominated. He won the Ballon d'Or and FIFA World Player of the Year. In 1993, he was unquestionably the best in the world. But this isn't just a story of goals and trophies. It's about a man who played with grace despite being broken. A man who refused to let injuries, politics, or pain define him. A man who gave Il Magicand, was remembered for a miss. But now you know the real story. This is Roberto Baggio, the artist from Caldagno, the fallen angel of Italian football, the man who carried a nation and was left alone in the end. But those who truly watched him, they'll never forget. Not the miss, but the miracle.
And the well-deserved world champion player of 1993.
A single kick, a single miss, and just like that, the hero became the villain. It's cruel, really, the way football can turn on you, the way a nation's dreams can come crashing down in the space of one heartbeat. But before that tragic miss, there was triumph, genius, glory. No, Roberto Baggio wasn't loved by every fan base in Italy. Not when he wore the shirts of Fiorentina, Juventus, Milan, but every time he put on the azzurri blue. He belonged to all of Italy, because he wasn't just their best hope, he was their pride, their poetry in motion, their biggest export to the footballing world. His first World Cup came in 1990, on home soil, and he was electric. In his very first competitive match for Italy against Czechoslovakia, he scored that goal, a slaloming solo run that left defenders in ruins. A goal so beautiful, so sublime, that it was later named the goal of the tournament, and ranked the 7th greatest World Cup goal of all time by FIFA. Then came the round of 16. Uruguay bent a free kick past the wall and into the net, but the referee ruled it out. A phantom foul. The goal was disallowed. In the quarterfinals against Ireland, he struck again another goal, but once more, it was wrongly ruled offside. Still, Italy marched on to the semifinals. Argentina, Maradona, the reigning champions. And for a moment, the dream felt real. Baggio started on the bench, but came on and nearly won it with another free kick, inches away. But the game went to penalties. He stepped up, calm, composed, and buried it. Italy lost anyway. But in the third place match against England, Baggio showed his class again. Italy earned a penalty, and even though he was the team's designated taker, he gave it up. Why? Because his teammate, Salvatore Schillaci, was chasing the golden boot. It was a gesture that spoke volumes about his character, his humility, his love for the team. Fans adored him. The media praised him. You see, up until this point, Baggio and the penalty spot had a beautiful relationship, a sacred bond. The spot trusted him, and he always delivered. But all of that was about to change. For years later, USA 1994, now a Ballon d'Or winner, now a legend, but also, now more fragile. In the months leading up to the World Cup, Baggio began struggling with injuries. His groin, his hamstring, his heart, all of Italy held its breath. Could he make it? Would he be fit in time? He wasn't 100%. But even half of Baggio was better than most at their peak, so he went. And once again, the weight of a nation fell squarely on his shoulders. And Roberto Baggio, fit, bruised, and burdened, was about to do something miraculous.
Speri di non indebolire la squadra.
Sì, è una battuta. Visto che la squadra va benissimo, spero che con il mio rientro continui su questa strada.
Despite all the hype, all the hope, Roberto Baggio started the 1994 World Cup shakier than anyone expected. The injuries, the pressure it weighed on him. Italy, too, felt it. They stumbled through the group stage, winning just one of their 3 games. 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss. And somehow, they scraped through to the knockouts, not by dominance, but by a technicality. They were the 4th best, 3rd-placed team. That's what saved them, barely. But then, something changed. In the knockouts, the divine ponytail awakened. Maybe it was the pressure, maybe it was destiny. But from that point on, Roberto Baggio carried Italy on his back in a way the world had never seen. Round of 16, Nigeria. The Super Eagles were soaring. They scored in the 26th minute and looked set to knock Italy out. The Azzurri were frustrated, confused, beaten for most of the match. Then came another blow. Gianfranco Zola was sent off in the 76th minute. Italy were down to 10 men. Their World Cup dream was seconds from collapse. But in the 89th minute, he broke free and calmly slotted home the equalizer, dragging Italy, kicking and screaming, into extra time. And in extra time, he did it again. From the penalty spot, cold, composed, and clinical. 2-1. Italy were through. Quarterfinal, Spain. Another war, another nail-biter. The match was tied 1-1, and time was ticking down. Then, just like clockwork, in the 88th minute, Baggio delivered once more. 1 touch, 1 finish. 1 man refusing to let his country fall. 2-1, again. Semi-final, Bulgaria. Baggio didn't wait this time. He struck early twice. In the 20th and 25th minutes, he buried Bulgaria before they could even blink. Italy won, 2-1. Again. With 5 goals in the knockout rounds alone, Roberto Baggio had dragged Italy to their first World Cup final in 12 years. He was magical, he was relentless, and he was hurting. You see, in that semi-final, something terrible happened. He pulled his hamstring. A cruel twist of fate. The final loomed. Brazil, the giants, the 3-time champions, the stakes. Immortality. The winner would become the first nation to win 4 World Cups, the most successful country in football history. But Italy's biggest hope, its heart and soul, was limping. He could have sat out. He probably should have, but Roberto Baggio, he refused. With painkillers in his system and strapping on his thigh, he walked out onto the pitch in Pasadena, California. Not at full strength, but full of heart. The game itself, a war of attrition, a chess match, both sides cautious, both sides nervous, and neither side could find the breakthrough, not in 90 minutes. Not even in 1-2-0-0-0. Penalties would decide everything. Franco Baresi missed first for Italy. Brazil missed next, still level. Both sides scored their next 2 kicks. Then Daniel Massaro missed. Dunga scored. Brazil were ahead. All the pressure now sat on one man's shoulders. Roberto Baggio. The entire world watched as he stepped up, his signature ponytail swaying gently with each step toward the 18-yard box. He had scored 5 times in the knockout rounds. He had saved Italy again and again. And now, all he had to do was save them one more time. If he scored, Brazil would still need one more to win. If he missed, it was all over. He placed the ball carefully, took his steps back. No theatrics, no hesitation, just Baggio alone with history. He ran up, swung his right foot, and watched as the ball flew into the California sky. Over the bar, game over. Brazil were champions, and the man who had carried a nation was suddenly the man who let it all slip away. That miss would become the defining image of Roberto Baggio's career. Not the genius, not the goals, but the heartbreak. Yet for those who truly watched, who truly understood, the truth was clear. That miss didn't define his greatness. It only magnified it. He didn't lose that final. He got them there.
He's missed it! And Brazil win the World Cup!
It was all over. That single miss sealed it. Brazil were world champions, and Italy, broken. Baggio didn't move. He stayed rooted to the spot for 8 long minutes. Head down, eyes on the grass, as the world erupted in celebration, as confetti rained down and Brazilian players sprinted across the pitch in ecstasy. He stood there, alone, silent, still. The cameras zoomed in. The headlines were already being written. And in that moment, football didn't feel like a game anymore. It felt like a funeral. Because that image of Roberto Baggio, head bowed under the blazing Californian sun, wasn't just a photograph. It was a wound, a memory, a nation's heartbreak, frozen in time. They called him the man who died standing. And in many ways, he did. The brilliance, all the genius, all the goals, forgotten, overshadowed by a single miss from 12 yards out. He became the scapegoat, the tragic hero, the fallen god of Italian football. Years later, Baggio would speak about that moment. About the pain, about the silence. It was the worst moment of my career, he said. There are nights I still dream about that penalty, because for the rest of the world, it was just a kick. But for Baggio it was a scar. A cruel twist in the story of a man who had given everything, and yet walked away with nothing but heartbreak.
Un desiderio da esaudire nel mondo del calcio, cancellare il 17 luglio 94.
That year, he walked away with the World Cup silver ball, recognized as the tournament's second-best player. He also finished runner-up for the Ballon d'Or, just behind Hristo Stoichkov, but none of it mattered. Not to him. Not to the critics. Not to a world that had already chosen its villain. The ache in his heart was untouched. The accolades did nothing to quiet the storm inside. Because the only thing anyone remembered was that missed shot. It didn't matter that he had dragged a broken Italian team half-fit and burdened by expectation all the way to the final. It didn't matter that to others missed their penalties before him. It didn't matter that he had scored 5 of Italy's 6 goals in the knockout stages, often single-handedly carrying them forward. None of that mattered. All the world saw was the moment he sent the ball over the crossbar, and that was enough to make him the villain. The miss didn't just haunt him, it defined him for a time. He returned to club football not as the nation's hero, but as its fallen prince. Doubts circled. Whispers grew louder. Could he still lead? Could he still matter? 2 years later, he answered, "Would you like me to continue with what happened?" Next, perhaps his redemption arc at Bologna, and how he earned a World Cup call-up in 1998. He would go on to win the Scudetto with AC Milan in 1996. But his journey with the national team was far from over. Despite his form, a falling out with then-Italy manager Arrigo Sacchi meant Baggio was left out of the squad for Euro '96. Once again, politics eclipsed brilliance. But fate wasn't done with him yet. Under manager Cesare Maldini, Baggio made his return to the national team, leading Italy into the 1998 World Cup in France. And in the opening match against Chile, the world held its breath. Italy won a penalty. Baggio, scarred by the ghost of '94, stepped up, and this time, he scored his first penalty for Italy since that fateful miss. In Baggio's own words, it was liberating. The demons of Pasadena weren't gone, but they were quieter. But as cruel fate would have it, history would repeat itself. Italy's World Cup journey would once again be decided by penalties, this time in the quarterfinals against the host nation. Franz Baggio stepped up first, and again, he delivered. But once more, it wasn't enough. Italy crashed out, and the heartbreak returned still. By then something had changed. Despite that sad day in 1994, real football fans, the ones who watched with their hearts, Not just their eyes knew the truth, Roberto Baggio was one of the greatest players of his generation. He is Italy's all-time top scorer in World Cups, the only Italian to score in 3 different World Cup tournaments, and ironically, despite being remembered for one missed penalty, he was actually one of the greatest penalty takers in football history. Let's put it in perspective. Baggio scored 108 out of 127 career penalties. That's a conversion rate of 85%, better than both Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. That miss in the '94 final, the only one he ever missed in a penalty shootout, he's also Serie A's 7th all-time top scorer, 4th for most free-kick goals, and the 4th highest scoring Italian in football history. They called him Il Divin Codino, the divine ponytail. He lived up to the name. Graceful, fearless, unforgettable. Two true lovers of the game. He will always be remembered that way. Today, Roberto Baggio lives far from the spotlight. After hanging up his boots, he turned down the glamour of coaching, the bright lights of punditry. Instead, he chose silence. He now lives in the Italian countryside, farming, hunting, living simply. No cameras, no crowds. Just peace. For a man who once carried the weight of a nation on his shoulders, it's the kind of stillness he never knew on the pitch. But if you think Baggio's story was emotional, wait till you hear what happened to Diego Maradona. Click here, and I'll take you through the most insane story in football history. Drugs, violence, prison, and revelations you've never heard before. You won't believe how it all ended.